how can I use AI to support those efforts so I can get on the right side of where I really should be spending my time at this point.
Hey, Growth Techs, that is Michael Maturo, the owner of DYAMI Architecture in New York, a long-standing firm with work spanning hospitality, retail, workspaces, and residential. And hey there, I am Tyler Sumalo, the creator of Growth Tech. Today, we're diving into how Michael can use AI to expand his marketing efforts, cement their firm as market leaders, and get DYAMI more exposure. I know that AI has a lot of hype right now, so if you're curious about how you can use it to benefit your firm, then buckle up. We've got some good stuff coming your way today. But before we begin, a huge thanks to Gelt for sponsoring Season 2. They've made managing my business and personal taxes stress-free, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you check them out at joingelt.com. Plus, be sure to mention Growth Detect when you schedule a consultation to get 10% off your first year with Gelt. And if this is your first time listening to the Growth Detect podcast, here's the gist. There are somewhere around 30,000 architecture firm owners and leaders in the US today alone, but there's virtually no place for them to chat about the question that fuels their business. How do I find, attract, and win the best clients for my firm? So that's why I created this podcast, to tackle your real questions so you can walk away with actionable insights. And if you like the podcast, then you'll love The Studio, which is a private membership for architecture leaders with steps, strategies, and support to grow your business. And actually, everyone in Season 2 is a member, which you'll hear about at the end of the episode. If you want a taste of what's inside The Studio, then be sure to join my free newsletter at growthtech.com/join, where I share free sales and marketing growth hacks with more than 10,000 architecture leaders every Sunday morning. So go and join right now and enjoy the show. Well, let's jump into the challenge that you want to address today. What question do you have?
So basically, I've been researching AI, so I wanted to find out how we can better use AI to improve our marketing and or sales process. I've kind of dipped my toes into the water here and there, but really haven't had time to fully focus and see what other firms might be doing, what larger firms might be doing, or maybe firms outside of our specialty area, let's say, are doing with AI. And we really don't have a formal, quote, marketing policy in place. So I think learning AI and how that might influence, the marketing process is kind of a big question of mine, because I think it's a great opportunity for small firms like us. I mean, we're typically between 8 and 15 people. So I've gone, our firm has gone through, and when I purchased it, we were 3 people. We had gone up to 14 people.
Wow.
After
okay.
one of the, so I've experienced being a small firm, experienced being a little bit larger firm. When the economy went down after 9/11, our work had dried up in hospitality. So I've experienced, people leaving through attrition and then building it back up and all those cycles. So as a smaller firm, my focus has really just been more on the networking side of things, and not networking with people who aren't in the industry, but networking with contractors and project managers and other consultants more so. And that's really how we get most of our business. It's either referrals from clients or referrals from consultants who want to bring us. They like working with us, and then they want to bring us on to the next project. So in all those years of the ups and downs, we never really established a marketing process. And certainly now with AI coming into the mix, I'd imagine the process is upended to some extent anyway. So
maybe a little bit. I mean, but don't sell yourself short, right? So it's not that you don't necessarily have maybe your marketing process isn't formalized, but you certainly have one if the majority of your work is coming through referrals, right? So you've built up a strong network of people that are still basically filling your pipeline. Is that where pretty much the majority of the work is coming from?
Yes. Yeah. And I specifically target clients who do repeat work. So although we're interested in clients, and that's part of why we morphed out of the corporate office interior segment, where we went more into retail back when retail was really, rolling out across the country, because retail was definitely repeat work. Now the business of retail obviously has changed. Also, the way they execute the projects doesn't benefit us. I mean, we're in the New York tri-state area, so our overhead is a bit higher probably than a lot of people who might, watch this here. who have maybe lower rents, lower expenses, potentially lower salary costs. So things like prototype rollouts, that doesn't fit in our market. What I really learned after chasing that work years ago is that our best advantage is serving clients on the difficult projects. So things where you have to be on site and be responsive and figure out the answer to tough situations. And you can't do that by putting junior staff on a prototype, two different skill sets. So that's why we really morphed into the, I'll call it the boutique services, but the really upper end level of service compared to like a rollout where you get a prototype, you do a site visit, you adapt the two, turn out a set of working drawings, and move on. So I realized where our specialty was, realized what our clients' pain points were from the firms that they were working with, and then specifically just reversed engineered and started looking for clients who either worked with larger firms who weren't happy with the level of service, who didn't have principal involvement, who were not proactive, where the clients felt like they always had to manage them. So we really have a bent where we're proactive. We will anticipate, the question that the client will ask and, in advance, even though we may not want to hear the answer. So that's really been our best marketing. It's been provide them with what they're missing and have them want to take us, on to the next project. And so then reverse engineer that another step to say, hey, let's find those clients, right? Identify them, do that work, and where there's a fit, where it works out, then we continue. And if we quickly realize that they're not the right client for us, then when that project's over, we don't have to pursue, that client specifically.
Yeah. Well, what I like about what you're saying, and I think it goes beyond the way that a lot of architects think, is you're so targeted in your approach, right? And who you're looking after. You said, we've kind of tested all of these different markets, and it has changed throughout the years depending on where the economy is at, how these different industries are moving. But we've learned throughout time that there's different clients that we can target that have the same pain points over and over again, and they also tend to bring repeat work, which is a pretty good business model. So that's a much stronger marketing strategy than what most firms have. Like knowing exactly who to target and where to find them, which it sounds like you do, right? Like you basically, know exactly what your ICP is, right? And you know where to find them and you know what their pain points are so that you can start a discussion with them and begin a relationship. Is that the general kind of marketing approach that you've been taking up to this point?
Correct. Yeah, that's our general approach. And we've been focused, like you say, we are focused on it, but I don't have a program that I manage it with. I have my own way that I track it, but I'm sure it could be more efficient. And then, of course, being a smaller firm, we all get caught in the up and down cycles of, sometimes I do get pulled into project work, right? We might be working on a tricky project. Like we did a ground up hotel on a triangular small lot that was brownfields that had a 250-page zoning study just for that property, right? And I was really the only one who could handle it, again, because my experience working for a larger international firm where I worked with Caesar Pelli to develop the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse, a larger scale project. I was really the only one in my office who was equipped to really handle that project technically. So when I had to step into that, so it created okay, now I'm busy doing the work, right? Not working, on the business, but I'm working in it. So I still do go through those ups and downs when projects come up, but they're always with the intent of knowing that client, the reason why I'm stepping in is because that client has the potential to be a repeat client, or it's a tricky project. It would look good in our portfolio, or I'll be able to meet 12 other consultants who could then take us on to another project. So I'll always do it with an intent. It's not just, haphazard, but it has resulted in the fact that, I really just never then formalized, a process.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Or at least wrote it down, I guess, sounds like.
Or wrote it down. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Then let's walk through. So if that's what the marketing process looks like today, what does the sales process look like? Someone comes in, you've started a conversation with them. How does that tend to flush out?
So our sales process It varies because although we do have the target markets, we still do get referrals. So let's say from our consultants, maybe we're working with them on a hotel project, and then they'll say, "Hey, I have this other project of whatever this type is. Would you be interested in working with us?" It could be industrial. We just had an email from one of the interior designers we do a lot of work with, and they got into the assisted living field from hospitality, and now they have a client who's doing funeral homes. So like, hey, would you want to work with us? It's a large national client. They're purchasing and renovating funeral homes. So it kind of fit our ideal target of repeat client, people that I know who are involved. He trusts the owner. He's worked for the owner because they were with a different company in a different market before that. So, it seems like an ideal opportunity for our office. So like my sales then is more, I already have a leg up because I have that referral in, and I have someone saying, we've worked with them for 15 years. These are the guys. So I'll have a project like that where there's really no sales process. The sales is really making sure that our proposal is clear. It hits the client's pain points. The price is fair, and that we're kind of building up some trust along in that process. Sometimes we'll do mom and pop projects. So I've had projects where somebody whose father bought them their first hotel, which was pretty nice, right? Here's your first hotel, son. Now go renovate it. That's obviously a different client, different sales process. So I think I had mentioned to you in the past, I had done, back in one of the recessions, I invested in taking Sandler sales, which was a big investment considering we didn't have work coming in. But that's the time, I think, where you have to do something different than what you were doing before, right? So if the economy is in a downswing and you're competing with more firms, well, in my mind, then, you have to do more exercise, right? You have to work out more. You have to build the skills in sales because now it's more competitive. So as opposed to being, what, I don't have the money for this. I'm not going to take out a loan or take something out of whatever to do this, right? Let me just try to get by, because to me, that's not going to help. So when I did that, that really gave me a good infrastructure that I then developed over the years. And I've read up on other sales methods and just tried to develop a sales process that's kind of like the Krav Maga of sales,
Yeah.
An easily adaptable, easily remembered process that has a simple structure that regardless of who I'm talking to, I could still just keep the main points in mind. So I think I'm a little bit more advanced on the sales side, certainly, than the marketing side. I kind of look at them both as the same thing. I get a lot of people make that distinction, and I guess it should be. But in my mind, when someone, like, let's say, when we're looking at the marketing process, I'm always trying to get from the marketing process to the sales process as quickly as possible. Not in a bad way, but I'm just trying to, in a good way to ask that question to get them to identify some type of a pain point, which to me, okay, they found me or they were referred and maybe they looked at our website real quick. To me, if that's marketing and it took them 15 minutes, I want to get into sales. Like, I want to start a conversation with them immediately. That's my goal. So I kind of look at both like in that context. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it seems to work.
Yeah. I think that's roughly right. The marketing is what gets people in the door, right? The sales is what gets the signature. Right. So if they're marketing, like you said, if they're coming to your website because someone mentioned you to them, and then they schedule a meeting with you, and then you jump into the conversation. I think at that point, it's like, when you jump into the conversation is kind of the point at which I think it turns into sales, I would think. Right. And I usually I even think about it as two different pipelines, right? There's like the leads pipeline. These are conversations that you're having where projects may or may not exist yet. There might not be it might not have a site, it might not have a timeline, right? Yet maybe there's not a budget associated with it yet, but these are people that are thinking about it. And then there's the opportunity pipeline or the sales pipeline, which is like, this exists. They are choosing an architect. There's a site, there's a budget, there's a timeline, and we are trying to, win their work. So there's like, two different, I guess that's how I think about it, is like you're trying to get people from the leads pipeline, ideally into the sales pipeline. But you always want to have some kind of backlog, like in the leads pipeline too, that you're kind of that can consistently funnel its way into the sales pipeline.
Right. And I think that's where my interest in the marketing and using AI is because we're usually lighter on the leads getting into the pipeline as far as people who haven't been referred to us in one way or another, or that we haven't worked with in one way or another, actually finding out about us. So that's the missing, I think, piece, or where I wanted to generate, more of that exposure.
Got it. Okay, so you want to use AI basically it sounds like to basically, how can we use AI to create more content so that you can increase your exposure, more valuable content for your audience so that you can increase exposure and not only rely on referrals to as your pipeline builder. Is that right?
Right. And then I think that the complexity that I see is I do, in a networking situation, I do push our hospitality experience. And the reason for that is, at least in our neck of the woods, when you go to networking functions, if anyone knows an architect, they either know a residential architect who's local, who does local work, or they know someone who does corporate work, corporate interiors. That's who I've come across most of the time in those environments. But I've never met someone else who specializes in hospitality, in that type of an atmosphere. So because that's something that the other person would remember, I usually really just make that my point. I say we do other things as well, but our focus is hospitality. In our website, when we expand the website, because we were hacked, we had a WordPress website, and we were hacked, and we had to jump on to a different platform quickly. So we just set our website up quickly, more as a portfolio piece than anything else. And I was always one to show less words, because my goal was, I don't want the clients to know how big or small we are. I don't want them to think we're too small or think we're too big, but I want them to look at the work and say, I like that work. And if they can do that work for that client, they could easily do that work for me. So I don't play up. I don't even know if my name is even listed on the website. There's no leadership.
You should list it on the website.
Yeah. I don't think it is.
Sounds like maybe you should use more words, but yeah.
Maybe I should use more words.
Maybe just a few more words, yeah. Well, that's one of the common things. We can jump into that too, but architects like the work to speak for itself, and it does tend to speak for itself for other architects, but for clients, it's a stretch because it depends on how educated they are in it, which usually, obviously, they're not as educated as we are in it, so what it's saying, it's like you're leaving it up to them and their context to understand what that image or building or work or portfolio is saying about you, and that's always a little risky, right? Because you're not necessarily, I guess, controlling the frame at that point. But so I know from being in the studio, right? Since you're in the studio, we were just talking right before we hit record that in one of the last kind of group workshops we were doing, you were mentioning that you have dipped your toe into AI. So what have you tried so far?
Right. So there's a program. I've been following this fellow, Joe Apfelbaum, for a couple of years, and he's been a LinkedIn specialist. I think he runs a marketing agency, but he had also focused on LinkedIn, and he has a product called evyAI, which is an add-on. It's a Chrome extension, and it's been really powerful. I haven't fully implemented it yet, but it's amazing in that you can, if you have your contacts and they've made a post, you go to that post, right? And once you've installed this extension, there's this little evyAI icon that appears in the comment. And if you hit that evyAI tongue twister icon, what it does is it gives you the choice of a persona. So you can make AI learn your persona. So you can say, I want a technical persona, or I want a helpful persona, or I want a witty persona. And then you can choose, I want to offer advice, or I want to congratulate someone, or how the tone of the message would be. And then you just press a button based on that selection, and it takes whatever that person's post was, and it creates a response to that, a quick reply. So it'll say, maybe that person posted, congratulations to my team on opening the new restaurant at X, Y, and Z. It was a great turnout. Everything was smooth, and we couldn't have done it without blah, 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 and whatever. And once you go through that, it'll say, it'll properly word a response saying, "Hey, Tom, congratulations! It sounds like you and your team did a great job. It's amazing to hear the success you had on opening night and that X, Y, and Z went so well." And then it'll give you like a quick closing. Best of luck. Let's keep in touch, or something. It'll say something relevant, worded much better than I just said.
Sure.
But it just took 2 seconds, right? So I didn't even have to put the thought. So the thing is, then you can just proofread it and hit send, or sometimes I'll just delete a couple of sentences and then post it. But, in the past, you'd get hung up saying, oh, well, what do I write? What should I say? What should I, whereas this just gives you like, a little prompt or something to build off of. So you can do that with your replies, but then you can also use that for posts. So you can, and that's what I'm starting to get into, is to learn how to input prompts for posts and have it create the post text that I can then say add an image to, and then have that post, to make our posting go a little quicker. And I think just be more thoughtful, or whatever, change it up a little. So it's a suggestion from that I probably maybe wouldn't have thought of that angle. So that's really all I've done with AI, on that end. But it's really been focused on LinkedIn, because I think that's where most of my possibilities for my clients are in LinkedIn. A hotel owner or a project manager, they're not going to look at Instagram, find us and say, I like that picture, let me hire them. They're going to know people in my market already, or they're going to look for an introduction to someone who's done what they're looking to do before, and they want a referral from a person. They're not going to, I can't leave it up to chance that they're going to find my social media or not. Social media, in my mind, then should just support it, so that if they go to look at our social media, it just gives us that credibility that they're comfortable and say, oh yeah, they do have, 30 projects up there that look just like mine.
Yeah. Okay, well, that makes sense. And I pulled it up too, so it's evyAI.com. I kept on trying to find it because I was putting in evy.ai, which is how I feel like every single AI tool does. And I was like, okay. So evyAI.com does look like a pretty cool tool. And I like, obviously, that you've chosen to focus on LinkedIn, because I agree that is where the decision makers are at. That's where you're going to find the business owners. And I think that's easier to target, especially for your market, your ICP, if that's what you're focusing on, is kind of business owners and business leaders. Like that's just where they're at. So you're using it sounds like, to comment. Well, actually, it sounds like you're using it 3 ways. So one is to kind of collect the people that you want to focus on. Right. The second one is then to comment on posts that they make, to stay engaged. And then the third one is then to generate more posts for your audience. Is that accurate? Right.
That's accurate. So what I had done before COVID hit, it was probably the year before COVID hit, and then into when COVID hit. We were hit pretty hard here in the Northeast, being in the New York area, given the nature of the New York, geography, the reliance on public transportation, subway systems. New York was a wildfire when COVID started. So we had our year booked in January, and by March we had every project canceled. So we went from everything to nothing in that time period. So what I did was dove into LinkedIn to expand our contacts in 2 markets. One was the property management market, because there's a parallel there to hotel work, and then the property management for, say, larger scale developments, residential developments, or tall buildings, condos, co-ops, and that also in the hospitality field. So what I did is did a campaign where I added, quite a few hundred contacts in each one of those, and I really hadn't followed up on being in touch with them up until now. So, I mean, believe it or not, because of the nature of our work in hospitality, we're just getting to the point where we're starting to recover from that downfall, 4 years later. So now I'm trying to divorce myself from project work, focus more on the marketing, and that's why LinkedIn, and then lead generation, and then how can I use AI to support those efforts so I can get on the right side of where I really should be spending my my time at this point. So I guess the tricky part of that is so having a couple of different markets. And always refer back to the website, just kind of as a client's going to jump there to see what we do. I want to specialize in hospitality, but I also don't want that to be the only thing that people know us for. So the marketing outreach that I do, I want it to be specific. So using Sales Navigator and LinkedIn, I want to target the hospitality field with the hospitality posts and information, and the property management, I want to target them with that specific information. So I do want to give them that individual message, and also want them when they hit our website. So that, again, because we got the website up quickly, all we do is we listed four of our market categories, not to overwhelm people. We listed the hospitality, corporate, retail, and we threw residential up there. Just because we had some interesting design projects going on. And I always debated getting rid of the residential section, but it does open things up, because we have had clients who found us looking at the residential section and then hired us for commercial work. So although we don't market towards the residential, I thought it was worth it having it there for now. So when people get there, I want them just to choose that market. And then when they hit that market, like you mentioned, sounds like I need more text. Well, that's where the text will be based to the hospitality, right? To the retail, to the corporate, and then also I'll add property management. I'll probably replace the residential with property management, focused, and then develop the website with that text so that I have more of a like a sales funnel, for each one of those markets on the page that icon takes you to. Like I want them to click something. I don't want them to see the general website and go down, because I can't appeal to them unless I speak their exact language. Retailers talk a much different language than hospitality people do. And corporate office in our neck of the woods it's managed, run, designed in a whole different way than either of the other two markets. So I really need to speak specifically to each market, I think, to be successful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You can have a kind of a pick your own poison, if you will, on the homepage, right, where they're choosing which one they go to, and then it's almost like a different landing page for each sector or something that you speak to. But let's talk about then, just actually one quick question before we jump into it. Are you the only one at your firm that's doing business development? Are you the only one that's doing marketing and selling?
So I have one other person. So Kevin from our office. We're in Rockland County, New York, we're right across the river from New York, and we're on the New Jersey side. So our main market being New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So we're right in the middle, like the epicenter of the three markets. During COVID, Kevin had relocated, took a job with another firm. I knew he wasn't going to be happy there. He reached out to me. He said, "Hey, I'm not happy here," after about a year and a half. And we said, "Great, let's open a Florida office." So we opened a Florida office, starting at a work share. And then now we're in a small little office. We have 4 people just outside of Tampa. So when he was in New York, we both split the time. Now that he's been in Tampa, spending more time kind of setting up the office and being responsible for, a little bit more than he was in the past, he's just starting to get back into doing the marketing, and he's very into LinkedIn. So because he was into LinkedIn and saw, was excited about it, that's what, kind of led me to say, okay, you know what, let me dive into LinkedIn. And if he's excited about it, let me just make sure that that we delve into it and make it as fruitful as possible, right? If we're going to develop an approach that he wants to run with, let's learn the most we can about the best way to do this on LinkedIn, and let's implement some type of organized content strategy for it. So he'll be working with me. So it'll be, the two of us, who do that, and he'll eventually play up more towards the Tampa market and say the southern eastern coast, and I'll play more towards the northeast, with the projects that we do up here, because we do work on projects. We've worked on international projects, and right now we're working on projects in California, Arizona, Chicago, Boston, New York, Florida, Virginia. So we are all over the country. So we're kind of going to divide like territory. Somewhat.
Yeah, territory management. Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. When it comes to running a successful architecture firm, taxes play a huge role in your financial strategy. Even if you've already filed, being proactive this year can significantly lower your future liabilities. And now that I'm working with Gelt, I finally feel like I have a partner I can trust to handle everything from my business to my personal taxes, and I'm excited to collaborate them for this season of Growth Detect. Think of Gelt as the ultimate CPA for firm owners. Their tech platform provides personalized guidance to help maximize deductions, tax credits, and savings. Plus, their in-house team of expert CPAs offers tailored tax strategies designed to minimize risk and grow your wealth. And when I first onboarded with Gelt, they shared strategies that saved me tens of thousands of dollars. So if you're ready for a premium, proactive strategy to optimize your firm's financial health, you have to check out Gelt. Go to joingelt.com and mention Growth Detect so you get 10% off your first year with Gelt. Let's set the stage, I guess, for where AI is at. And I think in the best way that we can think about it and in the best way that you can think about using it. I've been using it, I don't know, probably since ChatGPT came out. So whatever that's been now, a couple of years. It's dramatically improved over that time in different ways, 4 different ways. But there's a few things that have kind of become clear to me. So the first one is that, in terms of quality, you really get out what you put in. Some people will look at AI and think, well, I don't think that's actually true because I put in one sentence and it gave me like a whole book, right? But the problem is that one sentence that you put in didn't provide enough context, and so the book that it gave out is kind of useless, right? Because it's just like going off of anything general. So that's where tools like evyAI can be helpful if you're not yet familiar with prompting, right? Because basically what this all comes down to, the quality of that output really comes down to the quality of the input, and input all comes down to prompt engineering, right? Which is essentially learning the best way to properly instruct the AI. And so tools like evyAI, basically what they have on the back end of that is that they just have, basically a prompt that's being generated based on the inputs that you're choosing, right? Because I can kind of see it here. It's like, the goal, I want it to be encouragement. I want the tone to be friendly. I want the persona to be, something else. So it's using these different voices. And then on the back end of that, they have like basically a prompt template, right? That they're feeding into some other LLM, so some other like learning language model, right? That's giving you the output that you're getting. So there's good to that because that means, hey, you don't have to put together that prompt. I think the downside to that is that you don't have as much control, really, over the quality of the output that you're getting. And usually a lot of these tools are kind of built in a way where you can kind of tell that it's AI a little bit on the output. That sounds like you're doing it right because, there's another rule here that's like never, ever just like post the first thing that AI gives you because it's never good. So finding, always making sure that there's a human edit mode somewhere in between there, I think is a good thing. But that's just something to think about. Like there's an avenue where you stay with something like evyAI, right? Because it's out of the box and it already has everything set up for you. But what you lose out of that, I think, is a little bit like there's going to be a ceiling to the quality that you can get out of it. That's how I would describe it. Now you can go over to something that doesn't have a ceiling, which would be like ChatGPT. Like it doesn't really have a ceiling because it's all based on what you put into it. The challenge with that is that you then have to learn how to best, prompt it, right? How to best put together the prompt. And so different things that you can think about inputting into that would be any kind of data or databases that you have that can help it learn how you like to present, right? Or speak or talk to your audience.
Well, that would be interesting to learn, though. And I'll only say, so what I've seen him do, what I've seen Joe do on his seminar is, because he has it. I think the free version is based on GPT 3.5, and then if you pay the subscription, it's based on whatever the latest is. Is it 4.0 or I don't know if there's one later. Whatever the latest one is,
yeah.
Is it? So what he did was, he went through an instruction, and he said, you can do this. You can create different personas. So I can do DYAMI retail, DYAMI hospitality, DYAMI whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, input this information. And he had a checklist of like 40 prompts, 40 things to put in. Like say DYAMI Architecture PC, list the states that you're licensed in, list the work that you do. And he said you put this in first and you kind of give it that information. And then you do the prompt. Now that's my limited knowledge of prompting within that product. So maybe his product has a better ceiling because he's building it on chat and he's anticipated like that you have to load up this information. So yeah, so I guess learning what as architects what we should load it with would be helpful to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you have data on, I mean, like you said, you've been working with the same clients for a long period of time. So to me, what I would say, and you have the same process, you know what questions to ask, you know what their pain points are, right? And so if I were you, what I would do first is I would kind of try to create like a standard operating procedure for each, like there's an organizational piece here, right? And then there's a production piece here, like a creation piece. So the organizational piece is a problem that I heard, or a challenge that I heard kind of from you at the beginning. Maybe you don't think it's a challenge, but like there's no formal process in place, right? For marketing and for sales. Maybe that's not a problem because there's only two of you that are doing it anyways. But it could be a benefit to create more standard operating procedures or SOPs, because then it's something where you can like delegate some of the work to other people on your team, that will also help to save you time, right? So basically you could dump in, you could write out, this is how I typically do like a sales call, or this is how I'm currently doing our marketing process, and this is how I'm building the network to do referrals. And you can then create it like you can just ask it, I need help creating a standard operating procedure for the sales process at my architecture firm. We focus on this. These are the questions that I typically ask. These are the state that the clients are typically come to us with. If I'm speaking to, retail and hospitality, I'm asking these questions. So you're kind of like writing it out. But you only have to do it once, because then what it spits out, right, is going to be a pretty good like standard operating procedure. And then you can kind of go back and forth with it to say, well, that's a little long there. It's not exactly the way that I've asked that question. Can you make an adjustment there? And so you kind of just go on with a conversation to create a standard operating procedure. So I think there's an opportunity there, right? Just like take all of this knowledge that you have and you've built up to this point, and maybe it's in Word documents here or different things there, or you can even use proposals that you built up in the past, right? Here's 10 proposals that I've done for retail. Please help me create a standard operating procedure for how to write the best proposal, right, for our firm, right? So there's different things that you can think about doing there, just in terms of, creating a more formal process that more than just you and Kevin, more than just you and Kevin know how to do, right? So that can be helpful just for delegation, making sure that everyone's on the same page. So that's one side of it that you can think about. So then there's the other side, which is the content creation side, which just sounds like is you've already kind of started thinking about what kind of content are you thinking about creating?
Right. So, it's interesting. So what I did just in fooling around with ChatGPT is I listed in the property management sector. I gave it some information, and then I said, give me the top 20 pitfalls of property management construction projects, something like that. I got property management and construction projects. So I put that into ChatGPT, and then it came out and it listed like 20 aspects of a construction project that have to be managed by a property manager. So from that, then what I wanted to do was, kind of refine that a little bit and then create content that would address, let's say, over time, each one of those, because there's so much involved, as we know, in project management. And, property managers, from my experience, that they come more from a financial side because they're typically hired to manage the admin of a building or of a complex. And it's really financial matters. It's rents, it's condo payments, it's balancing books. It's managing the workings of a complex, and it's not from a construction side. Like a hospitality project manager, they more come from the construction side because they're dealing with upper end renovation projects on a daily basis, whereas the condos and co-ops, it's not a daily basis. Yeah, they may need a repaving project or a facade project or a window replacement or a roofing replacement or something like that. But that all happens over 15, 20 years for the property manager at that property, right? For the hotel, it happens much more frequently. So they're kind of related, but not exactly. So what I was going to do is take those pain points and then the corresponding pain points for let's say, hotel general managers or hotel chief building engineers, similar parallel approach to make them understand that we understand their issues with their buildings that they're in. Because, I guess what I probably didn't say is, probably 95% of our work is renovation work, which is also critical to our marketing strategy. Because you're dealing with existing buildings that have a history with a lot of unknowns and a lot of complicated factors. Doing a new building obviously is a lot easier. You control it. You tell everybody where to put everything, and if you did your job right, you don't really have many surprises. So we deal with surprises on a daily basis. That's and how we deal with them either makes our client happy or doesn't. And, usually it makes them happy, which is why we work with them again. So. Yeah, so it's real to me. That's really good for the top of funnel strategy. So if my contacts are either hotel general managers or hotel building engineers, that I have content that could appeal to both of them, and also let them know that, hey, to the building engineer, I get the technical aspect, and to the general manager, hey, we get the think outside the box because we know you're constrained in this existing building and you're going to have problems and you don't know how to approach it, and you have competition and they just renovated and now you're not a leader in the market anymore and you need help and you don't know what to do first. And we're those people, because I don't look at us as just architects. We're really more, I'd say, advisors as well. We're more strategic advisors, which is to me is that value proposition over the prototype kind of a firm. You know what I mean? It's if you have constraints in an existing building and you don't know what you can do, but these things don't work, and in the future you want to do these other things, then we're the right people to come in and analyze that building, analyze where your problems are, and potentially suggest things that you don't even know you have a problem with, but we see you have a problem with. And if I can get you to get what you want in your renovation project, but solve the problems you didn't know you had, then you're really going to be happy. And that's my goal.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, that sounds good. Well, that's perfect because, the content itself, I think there's 3 different ways that you can think about it, right? So you're doing it, actually, the way that you're mentioning right now is almost it's the hardest way to do it, not in a bad way, but that's the most difficult content to make because you're starting from scratch, right? You're using ChatGPT and you're saying, okay, I want to, what are the 20 most common pitfalls that project managers run into for this sector? And then it's going to give those out to you. And then you're starting from nothing, and then you're building up with what those types of content could be, right? And it's good because you're focusing on the pain points and the challenges that your market faces, which is exactly what our content should be doing, rather than posting about how great our project is, right? So that's the good part of it. But you have, I think, already a huge database of knowledge and content that you can probably use to fall back on. And so what I would think about with that is for example, so your work is one, right? So all of the work that exists on your website today, even if there's a small write-up of the project, I'm not totally sure, right? But you can take those projects one by one, you can put them into ChatGPT, and you can say, I want to create a LinkedIn post in this style, but I want it to follow I want it to be about this project, but I want it to follow the PAS copywriting framework, right? Which is problem, agitation, solution. And I want it to be client focused.
Funny, I just read your post on that this afternoon.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, great. So the problem, agitation, solution type of post, which is how I would, that's a prompt engineering thing, right? I'm going to give you a piece of information and I want you to turn it into something else. But if you think about taking that, you probably have, 20 or 30 posts just in the back end that you can kind of create off of that. And what's important is that you're shifting the perspective of whatever is written on your website to being more client focused, so that when you post it online, they came to us with a problem. This was how it was impacting their business. The solution that we came up with was this, and now they don't have that problem anymore and their business has grown, something like that.
That's great. Yeah, because I didn't think of using ChatGPT to actually come up with that aspect. I guess part of the I don't want to say struggle, part of the mental gymnastics is I like to think the problem through from start to finish, and I feel like if I go to ChatGPT, I might shortcut something that's going to lead me to a better idea. So that's just like my mental thing of, okay, I still want, that's why I kind of went to the 20 things to say, hey, wait a second. All right, you tell me what you find on the internet, what these 20 things are. Let me cross it with my brain database, right?
Yes.
Let me see which ones I found are the most in reality, right? and cross-check that and have that control and then say, okay, develop it. So I never thought about, what you're saying as far as even using it to write the post, but that's a great idea. That would be helpful.
because you have so much data already, right? I mean, the first thing that you usually look at, and I think this is how people get overwhelmed with AI, because they start from scratch with everything. And you don't have to, because you already have so much data. So like, for example, with every single newsletter send that I have a prompt that I've created that has like just really good subject lines, right? Because subject lines are how you increase open rates on a newsletter. And so what I do is I say, here's the newsletter that I'm sending out this week. Show me 20 subject lines that can be used for this, using basically using all of these different templates that I've created for compelling subject lines that get people to open the newsletter. And it'll give me 20 of them, and I like 2 of them. Right. Which is, it's just how it tends to go. But it's so much more helpful to kind of be able to evaluate. Yeah. So this mix between kind of the AI version and the human input, the human evaluation, I think is important. The other part, though, is, so we talked about, okay, so you can use your work. You have that database of your work. You talked about how you can start from scratch, right, to do what you're doing today, which is kind of find and identify those pain points. But then I would also go back and think about types of content that's focused around triggers. You were kind of just talking about it. And by triggers, I mean things that happen that lead your market to realize that they need an architect, right? And so you can think about, 20 reasons that, 20 indications that your hotel probably needs a renovation, right?
Right.
Not a bad piece of content to put that together. Or like three signs that your hotel is not up to code, right? I'm sure there's a lot more than 3, but different ways of thinking about that. And so that's that trigger content. And why I think about that is because whoever engages with that content is probably, like, especially if they do happen to be like a hotel owner or a hotel manager in different ways, they've probably seen that in their work, right? And so there's another component of this, which is right now you are commenting on people's posts that are kind of within your network that you're trying to focus and build relationships on. It'll be a lot more powerful and easier for you to build up those relationships based on people that are engaging with the content that you're producing, right? So you create content around these different triggers, and then the people that like it, you can quickly see who liked your post, and maybe there's 3 hotel owners there, right? So then you're just sending them a message, hey, thanks so much for, I saw that you engaged with the post. Is this something that you're experiencing today, right? Just starting a conversation. Not like, I'm an architect, come work with me.
Hire me.
Hire me. No, but just, starting a conversation. And the idea is that if you do, what is that? If you just do if you start a few of those conversations a week, which is relatively realistic, I think, over the year, you've started 150 different conversations. And just think about how many of those could probably turn into projects, probably quite a few, in terms of turning into it, right? So there's I think there's a steady, consistent game behind here where you're using the AI to produce the content. But then I personally think that you're better off focusing on more personalized messages, for the people that do choose to engage with that content. After that point, I wouldn't rely on AI after that point, because the volume isn't going to be so high, right? But the quality of the conversation does need to be high.
And what I like about doing the top 20, prompt there is, we're doing this every day. So there's things that, that we don't even think of. We just, when we're doing our work, we don't even market it to the client because we forget how valuable it is, but we do it as part of what we're doing. And of course, when we present it, we say, okay, well, we did this because of this, and this was the strategy. And it's like the client's mind's blown because they just thought they had a problem with this and I wanted to fix it, but they didn't realize, oh, but this trend is here and this clientele likes this trend, and you'll have more people relate to the space better if you do this. Those prompts made me realize, wait a second, yeah, there's 15 that I wouldn't have thought of because it was just understood. It was so there's a value as a reminder of all the value we really do add to a project.
What's obvious to you is extremely valuable to other people, usually, when it comes to something like that. The other way to think about those triggers, though, another input that you could think about using to get more trigger-related content on the output, I think would be your proposals, right? Because I think we've chatted a little bit, like in your proposals, like you were saying, you tend to frame that around, here's the problem that you're experiencing, here's the solution that we can come up with. Like you could feed ChatGPT 5 or 10 of the proposals that you've created around a specific industry and say, hey, can you pull out what are the common pain points that these people are experiencing right beforehand, and then generate, 5 LinkedIn posts that talk about a trigger that leads up that indicates that they probably need to consider hiring an architect because there's some sort of renovation project that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's a tricky point. So the way it works, I mean, again, we have different types of clients, but how we're usually first introduced to a client, it's what they call the client. If you're a franchisee and you own a Crown Plaza, right? Let's just say that's your Crown Plaza. Every so many years, Crown Plaza will come out with a new standard for a lobby, for a check-in desk, for guest room amenities, for a pool, for a certain aspect of the property. And as the owner, you have to upgrade to that. So a lot of what our introduction to a new client is what we call a PIP, property improvement plan. So the franchise gives the franchisee this PIP, and the franchisee looks at it and says, I don't know what the heck this means. And they hire a project manager to say, hey, I got this PIP. You're a hotel project manager. Help me get it done, right? And so then we end up getting, contacted by a project manager on behalf of the owner. Again, this is the most typical. It happens in a lot of different ways, but this is the most typical way. And after we work on that first project and we've met the owner and we've met the project manager, a lot of times the project manager will get fired and then we'll continue with the owner or whoever the new project manager is as the architect for years and years. I mean, most of our clients we've been working with for 10, 15 years. So it's, there's a different way that our proposal is written. So what I have to do is, like, the proposals are usually very dry. They're like, here's the PIP, and the proposal says, address the PIP, give us this information on your firm, all the pre-qualifications, give us 5 similar projects, give us the staff and their experience. It's very cut and dry. And I think when we had a conversation in the past, I had mentioned to you, that's where I try to game the PIP or try to expand on that and input some of these other factors into what would otherwise be a very dry proposal. So, like right now, our older proposals, I'd say, are kind of dry because, my mind didn't kind of wake up to this till about 4 or 5 years ago of, putting the marketing content into the proposal. So, and I've done it kind of where my proposal, I've kind of created a margin. So I'll have my proposal, say, down the center or towards the left of it. And then I'll have a little margin where I'll either have photos of different projects or a couple of testimonials or things like that don't relate to the PIP, but show something similar. So if I look at their property and I see what their design goals are and they want to update it and make it more modern, I'll take a few of the pieces from our portfolio in case they never look at the marketing part that we send them, and I'll actually put it in the proposal just as a thumbnail, and of course, so that when they're reading the words about what we can do at the cafe, at the cafe, so to say, well, there's a picture of the cafe that we just did at the whatever property, and show that it matches exactly what they're looking for. So I try to do it in subtle ways right now. So I'd have to figure out how I'll probably only have a few proposals like that. I probably don't have a lot that I could load the data.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, you can even use those, by the way, those proposals to maybe help to create more proposals like that. But it does what came to mind when you were talking about that was that it sounds like there's actually quite a bit of content to be created around PIPs then.
Yes, definitely.
You could create contents around how to read your performance PIP is a different term in sales, by the way. I don't know. You probably already know this, but there's a term PIP is used in sales. I help to train a sales team right now, and it's used as a performance improvement plan. It's for an underperformance salesperson. So project improvement plan has me thrown off right now. But so, how to read a project improvement plan, the most common things that we see in a project improvement plan, what things you should consider when reviewing your project improvement plan might be some good content to create there. But so many opportunities, I think it sounds like with your current process. But in terms of breaking it down, right, there's one side of it that you can use AI right now with all of the content and all of the knowledge that you have to help organize that and create more standard operating procedures that will then allow you to delegate more of the work that you have. And then there's another component here, which is you're using the AI still with the huge amount of data that you have on the back end to create content that's focused on your target market, on the pains that they have, on the triggers that they're experiencing, and also repositioning your work as being more client-centric and attracting the right people. And then basically it's just being cognizant of who is really engaging with those posts that you're doing, reaching out to them to start a conversation.
Right. Yeah, that's ideal. That would be great if we can achieve that. Then I think we'll hit the mark.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, Michael, I know that you're a member of the studio too. What would you say? What's your experience been with the studio so far, and what would you say to any architect that's considering joining?
It's a no-brainer. I mean, I've like I said, I've owned DYAMI since 2004, and right now we're in 2024, so for 20 years. The value is great, the community is great, the people are great. I've only had a chance to interact with a few people, but when you go on the site and you look at the chat boards and the questions and the answers, they're very detailed and pragmatic and easily implemented. There's not a lot of theory, which is what I like. It's a lot of learning about other people's firms, what problems they're facing, and then everyone can contribute, how they're dealing with those problems. And you can learn from, 5 or 6 different ways that different people are doing different things and pick out, what, this sounds good for how it relates to my business. I think it's a no-brainer because the amount of time that you save learning from other people's experiences is really what it's all about. Right. If it takes you 30 years to get 30 years of experience, well, then that's good. But, why not accelerate that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've been so helpful, and I appreciate how much you've given back already to the studio by sharing so much of the knowledge that you have after 20 years of owning a firm, because there's a lot of things. And I know that when you joined the last solution session, there was so many helpful tidbits that you shared. So I really appreciate your engagement with the studio as well.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Michael. Any other questions before we jump off?
No, that's great. I appreciate the insight.
All right. Thank you so much for being a growth architect and listening in on this actionable episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can continue to learn exactly how to overcome the business challenges that every architect faces. And if you want a taste of what's inside the studio, then go to growtharchitect.com/join to subscribe to the Growth Architect newsletter read by more than 10,000 architecture leaders every Sunday morning. I'll see you in the next episode.